I'll just go around until I find things that I like. David Wellman on Facebook says, I recently rewatched The Twilight Zone on Prime. Well, season 4 was missing. Save for a few episodes, The Hitchhiker, Steel. I don't think I don't think has held up quite as well as I would have liked. Of course, it's to be respected for its influence, but we have been spoiled by modern serialized dramas and procedurals that push borders farther than there could be pushed circa 1960s TV. The modern era of television is, they said the golden era was in the 60s or whatever. This is the golden era of television. The television is almost uniformly, Ben Shapiro was talking about it this morning. It's just better. It's better written. Some of the effects are better. Most of the movies are kind of dreck. The thing about about a TV show is, speaking as a writer or speaking as a storyteller, you know, if you make a movie about Star Trek, you get 2 hours with the characters in the first season. I'm sorry, in the total run of the first series, you had 72 hours with James T. Kirk and the Starship Enterprise and McCoy and all those other 72 hours of just continuous time with them. So you get to know the characters better, you get more invested. So the modern television is great, but the Twilight Zone is the Twilight Zone is different than anything else, I think, on TV, and it needs to be put someplace alone and well lit. It's the Twilight Zone. When I was watching it when I was younger, had so many moments, and it's not like one or two. I mean, just virtually every episode had something in it where you just went, wow, okay. It opened my mind, and for many people, it opened their mind. I got to watch one of the episodes with a millennial or two, couple, I don't know, about a year or two ago, something like that, and they hadn't seen it, so I decided, you got to see Twilight Zone episode. Which one do you pick? And the one I picked was the one where the woman goes in for the plastic surgery and it fails, and it turns out she's hideous. And then they finally, at the end of this thing, they unwrap the bandages, and you see that she's gorgeous, and all the doctors and nurses are hideous. And it blew their minds. I mean, it really blew their minds. They just, oh my God. So, look, the makeup was terrible. The makeup, so I'm with you on a lot of this, David. The makeup was so bad it was almost distracting. But again, there's just moments there where it just comes at you. And so I think it holds up remarkably well. And maybe I'm just out of touch with what's really going on, but what I think was amazing about the show was you had a chance to you got a chance to step outside of your worldview, outside of your paradigm, and just look at something the way you've never seen it before. It's almost like going up into the fourth dimension and looking down at our three dimensions and being able to see inside of things at the same time as the outside. It would just twist you around. I remember one I liked very much was the one with Agnes Moorehead. Didn't speak a word. There's this old woman living alone in a house out in the country, and she's lonely and desperate out there. And this miniature flying saucer crashes into her house, and these little aliens in their little powered suits just keep going and zapping her with lasers and burning her. And she tries to stab them with a knife, and these things won't let her go, and they're just torturing her. Finally, she goes upstairs and smashes this flying saucer, which is about this big, and kills all these tiny little guys that were infesting her house and making her life virtually unlivable and scaring her to death. And as she smashes this thing, the camera comes around to the other side of the saucer, and on the other side of the saucer, it says United States Air Forces, USAF. And then the little transmission says this planet is not habitable due to the presence of these giants or something. And you realize that you were rooting against yourself, that you were rooting against who you were. It gave you this perspective shift that you don't get very often. Rich B13 in the comment section mentioned the episode with Bill Shatner in the cafe. Shatner did 2 Twilight Zone episodes. The classic one, I think, is not as good as the other one. The classic one is he's at terror at 20,000 feet. He's a man who's terrified of flying. He's had a nervous breakdown. He's just sitting there shaking with fear, and he looks outside the window of the jet, and on the wing of the window is out on the wing is a monster, and the monster's starting to tear pieces off the wing. These are they used to call them gremlins. And every time somebody comes to check, of course, you can't see it, and then he goes completely crazy at this. He's just trying to get this thing off the thing before it brings the plane down, and finally he's subdued, and they take him out sedated, and he's being wheeled out, and you realize, man, this guy was really nuts because no one else could see this thing. And as you're wheeling him out, you see claw marks on the engine cells, and that this thing was really there. That was tremendous. It was tremendous. There was a question that just went by here, something connected to this. I think that was... Anyway, that was a tremendous episode. It was a tremendous surprise. But the one that Bill Shatner did that really impressed me was the one where he's in the cafe. So he's a young married man with his wife. His car breaks down in a small town. It's going to take a day to fix it, 12 hours or 8 hours or wait or something. So he goes to a cafe, and there's this tiny, chintzy, little, cheap little device. It's like a tell you your fortune. You put in a penny or something, and you pull a lever, and it gives you your fortune. And so he puts it in, it gives a fortune, and the fortune is very vague, and it's kind of cute. So he's bored, puts another penny in there, and he gives you another fortune. This one's a little bit more specific, and then he gives you another one, and it's even more specific. And then you begin to realize that that this fortune teller can tell the truth, can see the future. And he becomes obsessed with this, and he just keeps going back, trying to figure out what's going to happen with him and his life and everything. His wife is saying, "Don't do it anymore," and he becomes hooked. What that particular episode about is about addiction. That episode of the Twilight Zone is about addiction, and in that particular case, it's about gambling addiction. And the thing I like most about this was, in virtually every other Twilight Zone episode, somebody who's not morally fit ends up paying the price. The bad guys usually get a little bit of justice. Yeah, it was a little devil, Matt. It was a little chrome devil with little horns and I think red eyes. And you just pull a lever, and I think the fortune came out of his mouth or something. But the thing that was so beautiful about that episode was he is showing you how ruined he is by this addiction. And the way they make the point is they come back into the cafe. Shatner wants to put more money into this thing to get more and more of his information about the future. And they can't get to the thing because there's another couple there. And this other married couple is a virtual photocopy of Shatner and his wife, those characters, but they haven't shaved or bathed in 3 or 4 days, and you can see how desperate they are. You can just see this is where Bill Shatner and his wife will be in 3 days or 2 days, and so you realize what's ahead, this catastrophe, and it's so well done. And I have to say it's well acted too, which is kind of a change. And it's all about this addiction, and you think, well, this guy's life is going to be ruined. And then finally, it's not. He just decides to walk away. And I think the whole thing is a giant analogy about gambling and the power of people that gambling has over certain people. People who are addicted to gambling. I know a few people like that myself. It was a moral statement, obviously, but it was on some level. You got to see how desperate he was, how desperate he was for that fix. He was addicted. And the episode said, just walk away. And you don't have to come to this doom that you know is coming. So I thought that was terrific, and I think The Twilight Zone is the most remarkable television show in the history of the world. I think that includes Star Trek. The Twilight Zone is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Submitted for your approval. What Mr. Miller, who's about to take a trip into oddness and obsolescence. Accompanying him on this fateful journey is the mesmerizing sound of the Twilight Zone. Can't beat that guy. He's just cool and cool, all the way cool. Let's see what we got here.